we have our science critic, and he also analyzed general relativity, and so it's on topic today. So let's see what he had to say about general relativity, okay, and space-time specifically. Here goes. Listen carefully. The questions and issues to be addressed in this rebuttal include: does GPS prove that general relativity is correct? Does space-time explain gravity? Does space-time have anything at all to do with physics?
Well, it's not so much that we wouldn't have developed GPS if general relativity was incorrect. It's more that GPS has to account for general relativity, because otherwise it won't work. And the difference between these two statements is that in the latter, if general relativity were false, we could still develop GPS, it just wouldn't have to account for general relativity. I know that you do not believe in space-time, but the curvature of space-time is the mechanism that causes gravity to occur. Or at least that is the best idea that we currently have.
The best idea the mathematicians have, that's space-time. And so one question with GPS is, the GPS prove that time is a physical object, that time can be warped, that time serves as the wall that prevents the Earth from flying out of the solar system, or the moon for that matter. And so that's the first question you should ask. Is that a valid physical interpretation? Does that make any sense to you? And if they say, well, you're not supposed to take the analogy so literally, and we don't care about physical interpretations, we just care about the math, well, then why are you asking a question about mechanisms to a mathematician, first of all? And second, why have they ventured into what they call philosophy, explaining the mechanism? Why have they even attempted that? Why don't they stay in math and say, look, these are the equations? And they can stay there with their description, no problem. It's when they cross the line into physics and say, look, our equations, we interpret them as this. Yeah, but your interpretation is ridiculous. It's not even worthy of consideration. We have to lock you up in a mental asylum if you come up with that interpretation. They say, well, you're not supposed to take it literally. Well, why did you attempt to do it in the first place? If your physical interpretation is garbage and you're going to reject it at the end of your tale, at the end of your dissertation, why did you even attempt it? Why did you even try? Why are you trying to give a physical interpretation to begin with? Well, I'll tell you why. Because otherwise, mathematics, mathematical physics, is worthless. It's irrelevant if it cannot give you a physical interpretation. So they give you a description, then they give you their physical interpretation, their opinions, which are all ridiculous nonsense. And then they say, forget about our physical interpretations. We know because we do the equations every day, and the equations tell us this. So all they have is a measurement. They have a description. They don't have an explanation. And this fellow believes, like so many people out there, they're fooled into believing that general relativity has an explanation for gravity, a physical interpretation, that warp space, warp time is what prevents the Earth from flying out of the solar system. They really believe that. They believe that space and time are physical objects. And again, that's the question. Does GPS prove that time is a physical object? And if it doesn't, then GPS is technology and has nothing to do with science. It has nothing to do with science. Science we have to explain. Okay, we have to explain why the GPS little thingy there rolls around the Earth. Why doesn't it fly out of the solar system? What keeps GPS, the probe with the gyroscopes, what keeps it rolling around the Earth? Why doesn't it just keep rolling out? Is it going around another space-time depression, its own? Dragging space-time around itself, as they say? So here's the problem with what this fellow says. Again, we have time, which is warped, and this fellow believes that it's these seconds that serve as walls to the Earth. We have time, bent time, warped time, curved time, okay? And that's what prevents the Earth from flying out of the solar system. That's the physical interpretation. And then they tell you, well, by the way, don't take it literally. Then what have we learned if we're not supposed to take this literally? That time is a concept that prevents the Earth, a physical object, from flying out of the solar system? Jesus Christ. Okay, and so what's the problem? The problem is that time is not even a dimension, okay? Time is a number line. Time does not have direction. Time only has magnitude, and time doesn't go perpendicular to anything because it doesn't have direction. On the other hand, length, width, and height, in the case of dimensions, true dimensions, coordinates, longitude, latitude, altitude, and vectors like, depth, breadth, and elevation, all these have perpendicularity and they have direction. What they lack, all of these, is magnitude. And number lines have the opposite, have magnitude, no direction, no perpendicularity. That's why the, space-time, four-dimensional space-time is really four-number lined, not four-dimensional, okay? Dementia is what mathematicians have because they never define their terms. So they come up with nonsense as far as a physical interpretation for what's happening out there.